It's so exciting to have you here on the 31-day Good Vibe Challenge, Egyirba. It's one of the joys for me to be able to have these conversations with wise women and bloggers like yourself. So I want everybody to get to know you, to see your heart, to just get a sense of your vibration. We're talking a lot about good vibration, which means higher vibration, because as you go up the emotional scale, and I'm talking to our listeners, she already knows all this. As you go up the emotional scale, as your vibration rises, you feel better. And at a certain point, when you hold your vibration high, you also ascend into another dimension. So tell me a little bit, you beautiful thing, about your journey. Have you always been mystically inclined, or did you grow into it?
Well, you don't want to go all the way back there. That's all the way back. I mean, I've always been trying to, figure things out in terms of what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of life? From the time I was a little girl. But I would say that when I went to graduate school, I got on a real conscious journey, being aware that I'm really trying to figure stuff out. Because I could see that the traditions that I had been in terms of how I raised, in terms of understanding my relationship to the universe and everything like that, they were not satisfying. And I didn't understand. And so I kind of went through all like what I call major traditional or organized religions, things that are put in place institutionally, like Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism, or and then many, many meditation paths along the way and explorations along the way. So it's an ongoing journey actually for me, because I see that, it's not about like, okay, this is the it. I mean, I used to see it that way, but now I understand it as the journey. And that as I move along this journey, I'm getting, or I hope I'm getting, clearer, wiser, becoming a person of more wisdom and depth and understanding. And that it kind of works to help me be more compassionate as a human being and loving and so many other things. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but it's kind of an amalgamation of all the things that I've learned, the way it looks now, all the paths I've been on, all the lessons, all the things that I've put experienced in my life. And quite frankly, it's like I use whatever I need in a moment. So if in this moment I need to, if I need to relate to something in terms of a philosophical point of view, like, New Thought Christianity, which is, I do use that a lot, if you know about science of mind and practical, what they call practical Christianity. But really what I am is a prayer practitioner in that tradition. And so it's prayer and the affirmative tradition. I use that a lot, but I use a lot of things actually. And, so if I need to relate to Allah, or if I need to talk about the Buddha, or if I need to go, to the African Yoruba tradition and talk about the deities in that tradition, the Orishas, I use whatever I need to use when it feeds me, because I think I've experienced all of them in other lives. But that's a whole nother that's a whole nother subject.
Yes.
But anyway, I've done a lot of different things, and what my goal is what you're doing. My goal is to help people raise their vibration, keep it elevated, understand how, a broader picture than what's just in front of our eyes in terms of, what I call living in the, 3D matrix world, mm-hmm. and being able to here I go. I do quote a lot of Bible scripture sometimes, even though that's not at all me. But, when they say Jesus said, be in the world, not of the world, it's like you've got to live in this world. You've got to walk in this world. But you've got to be able to see beyond it. You've got to be able to see the reality that you really want to be living and not the one that we're all forced to deal in on an everyday basis. And if we stay in this one, we're never going to get anywhere. We're going to just keep perpetuating this vibration, this reality, getting caught up in the fear, because that's a major mechanism of this dimension to keep us in lockstep, to keep us on our P's and Q's. And, when you ever get past being able to see the world that way, it becomes very interesting, and you then learn to negotiate. How do I walk in this world but not,
right,
not be of this world?
And that is the work. Now,
that's the work.
I want to come back to this because it's an important.
I'm sorry for the outside noise here.
Sorry.
Motorcycle.
Okay. Is it gone now?
You can probably still hear him. He's going down the street, but he'll gone in a minute.
Just a minute.
Sorry.
One of the reasons we chose this platform is that we can edit it. So if we need to do side conversation, that's not a problem.
Okay.
We are antennas for the divine. We are light.
Ooh, I love that.
In Native American lore, it's called being a hollow bone. And
ooh.
Extremely effective when you, in fact, one of my favorite things when I'm flying across country is to become that hollow bone and bring light in through me and down through the airplane to the land before. So I'm a hollow bone moving light across the sky. Isn't that?
Oh, I love that, Barbara. That's so cool. I'm going to have to use it.
Absolutely. So I want to talk more about moving between realities. I think the people that are joining us here either are somewhat aware of living in a 3D reality, which is very different than what we've been told it is, and bringing 4, 5, 6, all the other dimensions into this one to help raise the consciousness. Can you talk a little bit about your perception of the process we're in?
Can you rephrase that question again?
Sure. The journey. We're all on a journey.
Yes.
We're attempting to move 3D reality, the matrix that you've been talking about, to a higher vibration so that there's less suffering, there's less pain. Once you realize the connection between vibration and suffering, it gives you a range of choices to use to change how your life looks, how you feel, who you are in the world. Does that help?
Yes, I think. Well, we know that the Gaia is also is rising or has risen, or we're all doing it. However, for me, okay, at the very base place, I guess I would say that it involves a shift in perception, because we're not, to my understanding, we're not actually going anywhere physically. I mean, but it's kind of like, and my friend teases me because I always use this kind of scripture to try to explain this point. It's like there's a scripture somewhere in the Bible that says something about two women are standing at the grinding mill and one is taken and one is left. Traditional Christians would say it's the rapture and all of that, and Jesus is coming to get you and pull you up. I don't see it like that. I see it as shifting your perception so that even though you're in this physical reality and there's a person next to you and things are going on in this reality, you may not experience it, or how you experience it will be very different because of how you perceive what's actually going on, because of how you have elevated your level of perception and thinking and understanding about what's actually happening. So I I think it's a matter of getting people to understand that we're not locked into the five sense reality that we're all experiencing. If it, if science can't prove it, if you can't see it, touch it, you know, see it in some way, concretize it, then it's not real. I think people have to be willing to broaden that a little. Even if they can't disrupt that way of being and thinking, they have to be willing to make a little room in their world to expand a little bit. And I actually think that people don't sometimes get to do that until they feel pushed against the wall, until their backs are against the wall in terms of, because I think that happened to me years ago. It's kind of like, okay, this is crazy. This is not solving anything. This isn't answering my questions, and frustration really got me to push a little against whatever so-called reality I was in that moment. And it continues to push us. I think it continues to push us out and get us to widen a little bit. And I don't even think it's that really deep in terms of, you got to be like beat, to get yourself. I think the universe is just like, oh, okay, well, let's expand here a little bit. Let's expand there. Nice and easy. It could be a little rough if you need it to be, but it's easy. And some of us need to be knocked over the head, and some people are like, oh, I didn't see that. Let me look over here too. And now I got my peripheral vision is bigger. So I see what I've always been seeing, but I see a little bit more now, like kind of when you see, well, when I used to see lights in my peripheral vision, it'd be like, and then you turn your head and it's like, there's nothing,
Yes.
There's nothing there.
Yes.
Does that make sense, Barbara? Because I think I want to answer a whole lot of things, but I'm trying to encapsulate it somehow in a brief way.
Well, the teachings, or what scientists are saying now, is that all the dimensions, all the vibrations are here now. So when you're not going anywhere, that's accurate because it's already here. But we have to tune our receivers to be able to sense it.
Well put.
Thank you. So that's part of the process we're in, because humans are the only creatures that create what in Andean shamanism is called hucha, which is dense, heavy vibration from emotion. So we have shame, fear, rage, guilt, all the vibration emotions. We are weighed down. We are energetically heavy. And time that is emotion that's just not fully processed. We have to feel it in order for it to release. Now, we don't want to get stuck in it, but we have to let it move through us. So that means if we know how to manage the energies, manage the vibration, we're actually healing ourselves. We can go to whatever the charge is, where there's pain and we're activated. When we feel ourselves reacting, that's a sign that there's unprocessed emotion there. There's an unhealed trauma or experience of some kind. We let ourselves go into that, or we use the tools that we have in any of the traditions to clear our fields, lift us up higher, we feel better. Now we're onions, so there's always more layers, but that's okay. Because this is the journey of raising our vibration. And as we rise, we feel better, we feel happier, we see more. And we become more compassionate human beings. It's
hopefully
a powerful way to navigate through life. Now, does that sound like it's aligned with your perception?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is a process. And as one of my friends used to say, you can't get there till you get there. So you can't really make anybody understand it or see it. And that's why I never personally, whatever people gets people to connect it to their source. If you need to talk to Jesus or, Allah or Buddha or, Shiva or whoever, or whatever you need, if that works for you, then I'm not getting in the middle of that. It's only when people ask me my opinion or ask me what I think,
Yes.
because I have been down most of those paths. I have, and like I say, I've taken what I say the best of them for me is how they work for me. And so I think it's a process that people embark upon, and you're going to shift and change because that's the nature of the journey. Nothing is static, unless you just stubbornly refuse to make any movements. And then you're fighting the universe, and that's a whole nother thing. Resistance is big and futile, as they say in some Star Trek, some Star Trek thing. Forget which one. Deep Space Nine. Resistance is futile because you can battle against it, but it's like in one of the scriptures that says, "Resist ye not evil," and it really means the more you push against something, even evil, the more you're engaging that energy, that negativity. So you want to kind of like, I always get the image, the metaphor of the Aikido master who he never charges at the opponent. He always yields to the energy coming at him in this martial art so that he somehow whips his opponent by yielding to that energy.
Let's talk about, yes, this is an important point. Let's talk about,
okay.
Because this is about boundaries. And
Oh.
how do we acknowledge the existence of things that are aggressive, that want to do us damage, and yet we're not supposed to? So I think your metaphor of the Aikido master is beautiful, because that means you feel it coming and you just step out of the way, or you divert it, or you find some way to keep it from attacking you directly without you attacking it directly. Because when you attack it directly, you are perpetuating the energy, as you've said, but we can't ignore it. So how do we do it? There's ways to do that. Instead of a war, for example, there's ways to look at problem solving and communication. Wars are a result of people deliberately being aggressive for purposes of their own. So
yes,
I don't want to talk too much about that, but the boundary issue, because we have to set boundaries in our personal lives.
Yes.
What defines where you stop and I start, right? But it doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I have this." And that's a boundary, that's a no, but it's not right? There's a distinct difference in the energy, and specifically in the intention behind the energy. A healthy boundary is designed to keep everybody copacetic, harmonious. The aggressive boundary is trying to change an energy.
Yeah, resisting it. And that's what I kind of see when I see people. It's not that, like I always tell my friends, it's not that it doesn't matter to me. Just to give you an example, because I'm blissfully ignorant. I stopped watching the news a long time ago and taking in mainstream information a long time ago. But that world that we live in is, it's fed by all of that. And I see people working very hard, trying to change things, trying to go up against injustices. I get it. I really do. But I think that,
that is appropriate. We need
yes,
to be working for change in those ways.
Yes, but then I'm sorry, you kind of faded out. Can you repeat?
I said it's how we go about doing it that makes the difference.
Yes, it's like you do what you can. It's like if you want to put your money on a situation, if you want to go do a protest, or if you want to sign, petitions, or whatever people feel they need to do to, to be right with themselves. I don't have any objection to that.
No.
I just see it as, it's the argument about whether you stay within the system and try to change it, or you revolutionize the system in some way. And, I can't say the jury's still out on it. I think you use a little bit of everything you've got. But you cannot afford to indulge your emotions, energy, angst, whatever, in whatever it is you're trying to change, because what happens, there's a fine line between when you begin to resist, that energy of resistance, which takes you into combat and battle, and I don't think anything gets resolved.
Right.
And then there's other ways to change it. So the example that I was going to give was when all those children disappeared, as they were coming into the border, they were taken from their parents. It was like 1,500 or 2,000 kids, or I don't know how many kids. And everybody's, where's the kids? Where did the kids go? And people were up in arms about that, as I definitely understand, because these children were taken from their parents because supposedly their parents were illegal, coming in through the Mexican border and all that. So all the children disappeared, and they put some here and they put some here, but nobody really knew where they were, and people were up in arms. And I remember saying, my YouTube channel's inactive right now, but I remember saying on one of them that, I realized kind of what I thought happened to those children, and what I thought was going to happen in that situation. They were going to attempt to address it with some paperwork or some, mouth work, but that essentially nothing was really going to change because we're playing in this system. So for me, it's not that I don't have compassion. I have a great deal of compassion. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a very compassionate being. But I cannot, change for me means something else. It doesn't mean, yes, give money to help people who are doing whatever to try to figure out that issue, but I'd have to deal with it from a spiritual reality, or I have to deal with what I want to see and moving as if, and I'm sure about as if. So I can't afford to let my emotions get hung up in, oh my God, the children, because I feel that. But I know that I can also, I'm yielding to that. I'm yielding to this reality if I allow myself to get caught up in anxiety, fear, angst, anger, ugh,
So
it's not a useful.
When you feel those things, how do you manage them? How do you deal with the rage, the pain of watching children being ripped from their families, and knowing that whatever you do in 3D reality probably has little effect, but what you do in other dimensions with your prayers, with energy, can have some effect? But how do you keep that from feeling like you're abandoning responsibility?
That's a big question, really, Barbara. But it's a lot of things. First of all, if I feel angry, I express my anger.
All right.
If I feel,
yes,
I don't disown my emotions, because I am a, I may be a spiritual being, but I'm in this human body in this reality for a reason. But I also think that, and this is hard for some people, I also think that, we create our own reality. So we're watching many movies going on at one time. We're participating in this one. And in this movie, I've agreed to watch these children be snatched from their parents. And now what's in the next scene? Okay? What happens next? I believe I'm as much a writer of that next scene as I am a participant in it. Now, this is a much longer conversation on a different thing, and I don't want to go too far. So what do? It's I acknowledge what I'm feeling. If I'm a person who wants to protest in some way or whatever, I say that's appropriate for people to do. And then I also shift into my own understanding of what I'm seeing and how this reality is working, without like dealing with the emotions and whatever of this reality. In other words, well, I should feel guilty because, I should be more indignant, or I should give more money, or I should do this. Yes, you sort of, like I say in the beginning, you're walking the balance of being here and being somewhere else, being here and being somewhere else. And so it's delicate. So it's like, yeah, people might look and go, well, she's a heartless whatever. She should be out there in the streets doing whatever. And I get it, but I cannot disrupt my own spiritual growth and understanding by letting what other people, letting their accusations, diatribes, or whatever, send me to the guillotine. You know what I mean?
This is
I know if that answers.
This is another important part, because one of our jobs as spirits having a physical experience is loving ourselves. Now, loving ourselves does not mean it doesn't mean that our heart doesn't ache for the parents and the children that are experiencing that trauma. That compassion is an energy that flows from us to them in whatever else that we're doing. I mean, I've signed gazillions of petitions too for whatever good they do. And I'm in another continent. So the only way I really can have an effect is to let the pain in my heart for those families be a voice to the universe. And that's a legitimate prayer. When your heart aches for somebody, let that ache go to the time that it go into the universe, because the universe recognizes that prayer. And also envision the best possible result, that those children are going to be back in their parents' arms, that all of them will cherish and love each other and heal each other. But we have to wait.
Well, and we also have to acknowledge that everybody's playing their role that they agreed to participate in. So it's acknowledging that as well, which puts you at risk of sounding heartless. Like, it's like, well, you mean those babies asked for that? No, not in the way you're saying it. But when everybody is a conscious, strong spirit before they get into this body and into their roles on stage, places is what the director says when we all get ready to go onto the stage and perform. And it's like that. And it's like, so I say it's always a delicate balance all along the way, because you have to remember what is true. You have to be willing to stand your ground for what how you understand truth. It's a very interesting way of moving through, my particular position of moving through the world and moving through an understanding. Because you have to, at the end of the day, you have to be okay with yourself. You have to know that whatever it is between you and your source, you're right with that. However you negotiate, despite what anyone else ever says about you. And it's very difficult to cultivate, compassion, non-judgment, all the things we hear, words that we hear that we're supposed to do, to be a good spiritual person, to be a good, doing it right, it's so much more for each individual's experience, so that all we can do is share our different experiences and, along the way, see how that can be helpful to someone else. There is no there is no particular way. There is no particular right thing, I think. I think we're all figuring it out. I think we're all trying to just do the best we can. And I try to keep that in mind, so that even as I might want to judge somebody, I won't even say it now, but even if I might want to judge somebody, for their representation in a position in the country you and I come from, I try to not do it. I try to say, okay, well, if everybody wants to go along with that little role and little dance over there, so be it. I'm going to refrain from whatever, because I do believe we're all playing a role for a particular reason. And everything that's in my life and in my reality has agreed to be here to help me learn whatever it is I'm supposed to be learning on this journey.
Yeah.
Went way around with that one, Barbara, but it's really a really large, that question is a very large question to my way of thinking. And I think it, I'm not sure I can do justice to it with the goals you have in mind for this.
Mm-hmm. And we're focusing this month on our personal vibration and how to hold that high. So we do need to bring the focus, the lens back into our personal realm and into the realms of our lives, because those are the people that we affect directly with our vibration.
Yes.
So the tools that we can use to manage this is, first of all, to acknowledge what's real, to acknowledge when we have anger or pain or frustration, and to acknowledge why, and to what, if anything, we are intended to do in that particular situation. So acknowledgement of what's real, identifying our own role, and then working with ourselves. We do have to love ourselves. The vibration begins in our own hearts. And it has to be compassion for us, for ourselves first, because we have to forgive ourselves for being in a process. And we are all in a process. That's what life is this journey of learning. So maybe I don't like who I used to be. Well, I changed. Now I like who I am. That is progress. I still got a long way to go, girlfriend.
Yep. It's like the journey where, forget about the end goal, because, hey, maybe you'll get there at the end of this life. Maybe you won't. Maybe we'll be back, although I say, oh, please.
And we're not even all that clear what the end goal is, right?
Exactly.
We think it's enlightenment. What does that mean? Enlightenment means that you're losing more and more of that heavy energy, that hucha, that suffering. So as you lose that, your
Your voice faded out.
You get to be happier. And I want to state that when we say whatever works for you, that is not diminishing anything that you're doing, because what you're doing is real. I have to say, in my own life, I'm a pagan who loves Jesus. He was my first beloved, Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, and they still are. It's got nothing to do with any organized structure. It is the reality in my life. I also love great mystery. I love Ganesha. I love Oshun. I love Kuan Yin. These are all avatars to show us how to raise our vibration, how to manage this 3D reality in a way that improves everybody's life and our own as well. That's what this is about, folks. I'm just so thrilled that we've had a chance to talk about this. Girl, we could talk for days.
Oh, for days, because there's a lot, there's a lot. I just, for me, it's encouraging people to, just whatever you can do, whatever you can do to uplift yourself, however small that is, in whatever ways you can keep yourself in the, let's say, use positive and negative, but in the more positive mind frame, despite what's going on around you, to be able to remember or get to know who you are, to be able to have some kind of understanding of your connection beyond this reality to source, a God, a deity, a universal energy, a cosmos, however you see it. But to have that and anchor that in your 3D reality so that you have, as things rock and roll around you, as they are going to be rocking and rolling even more as we keep moving along, you are not, discombobulated. And, you have a way, a frame of reference, a way of staying, sane, centered, and grounded, because that's the bottom line. So what can you do to be happy? What can you do to elevate yourself? It's a perception. You're gonna look at what's right more than you look at what's wrong. Yeah, the wrong is there, but I think it's one of the channel entities, Abraham or somebody, where you put your energy, that's where your focus is. Where you focus, that's what grows. So if you can find more joy, if you can find more happiness, do that.
Yeah.
However small, start where you are. We don't have to have huge gains and goals to accomplish. So what you're doing, Barbara, in my opinion, is excellent, because, just thinking about it this way is like something that a lot of people may not do. You may not even really understand. What do you mean raise your vibration? What do you mean, happiness? And, let's deal with reality. And reality is only what we have as a consensus made. So some of us are trying to shift that.
Yes.
So this is a great way to get that energy out there. So proud of you for doing it, because it's so necessary.
Well, I can't take credit. My guide said, and when your guides say, do this, you go, oh, okay.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I think it's excellent. And I thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation, because it's really important for me as well. I mean, I see that as my work in the world. So I'm really grateful, and I'm really delighted just to have this conversation. And I hope we have more, quite frankly.
I would love to do more. Tell people how they can find you on the web.
Oh, well, right now I'm shifting my provider, my website provider, to another provider. So it's sort of in transition, but I can just share my email, which I think I know what it is. It's Soul Whisperer 999 at gmail.com. Soul Whisperer, all one word, SOULWHISPERER 999 at gmail.com. And I'm reactivating my I have my writer's page on Facebook, which is Egyirba High, but I also have my shaman for my shaman page, which is being reactivated, which is Soul Whisperer. That'll be online sometime this week. So there's a few ways, and I'll send it to you later.
And we'll post it with the video so people will know how to find you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara,
for being who you are in the world, Egyirba. It's a delight.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, listeners, stay tuned for more great stuff, and keep your vibration high.